Hello, Steve White, Trek Way 89 for Steve Hart saying hi. Well, I just watched Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation. Now, this is the Uhura episode, which I was kind of dreading because I thought it was going to be all about her parents dying and that. But that was a very small part of the story. This was overall a good episode. It's like the second good episode they've had for the season. I didn't have any problems with it. There are a couple little things in the moment, but they kind of resolved themselves by the end of the episode. They're kind of bothering me in the episode, but then I'm like, oh, okay, that kind of works. This episode had a horror element to it, which I really liked because I love horror, and there's not a lot of Star Trek episodes that deal with horror. There's like Night Terrors, Genesis, Eye of the Beholder. There's the one with the Vulcan zombies in Enterprise. There's a few, but not many. There's like 2 or 3 a show, really. They're my favourites. But yeah, this episode starts off with Uhura doing a log, and she's basically having trouble sleeping, and she's sort of not able to focus on the bridge. She hears a signal and she can't find it, and she thinks it's the sensors, so she goes down to tune the sensors, which Hema taught her how to do, and she's watching like a video where he showed her how to do it. And she's reminded of him. Carol Kane's engineer shows up. I can't remember her name. I'm just going to call her Carol Kane for the video. And they talk. She's reminded of Hema. She leaves, and when she gets in the elevator, she sees a zombie version of Hema screaming at her. And it's quite horrific and quite like shocking. Then we go to the credits. After the credits, she's in sickbay, and she apparently has had exposure to deuterium, because they're actually helping to repair a deuterium refining space station that the Federation has built. It keeps breaking down, and there's a couple of ships, including the Farragut, there that are working on it. So they basically say, well, you've had deuterium poisoning, that can cause hallucinations. And she eventually works out, you know what, this started before I went down to the nacelles. And we did get a great shot. They did a really good set of the nacelle, where it's much like the episode The Eye of the Beholder, where you could see all the way down the nacelle, which are hollow, and there's a little room, and then you have this big window looking down. It's quite good. It's one of the best parts of that episode, and I liked seeing it in this episode. But yeah, she sort of works out that it wasn't that, and she does kind of try and out-logic Spock, who says, well, maybe, but still it's more likely that it's, a symptom of this exposure that you've already had. But she's not happy. She's still trying to work it out. She ends up being taken off duty because she keeps hallucinating. She sees crew members that have been killed in the aisles. She sees her parents' crash shuttle, and she doesn't understand any of it. She keeps hearing this noise. Now, eventually she goes to the bar. She bumps into Kirk, who's there visiting Sam, because the Farragut was one of the ships that's helping out with the station. And he's already had a testy exchange with Sam. I think he's kind of resentful that he's doing so well and that his dad approves more of him and so forth and blah, blah, blah. Uhura thinks Kirk's hitting on her. She leaves. He goes to speak to her again. She punches him in the face when she's having a hallucination. She breaks his nose. They fix it in the crew quarters so he doesn't have to report it. And he tries to help her because apparently she has trouble asking for help. So a communications officer who can't communicate or ask for help, so, ironic. Now they eventually realise, because Carol Kane's character and Una are on the space station, and they're very testy with each other, and it seems like a really stereotypical sort of depiction of women who kind of can't work together and always have to fight and have conflict, which is a stereotype of women who in the workplace. I didn't really appreciate it as it was happening, and eventually they confront each other. Una says, "You're sloppy," and Carol Kane basically says, "And you think you're the smartest person in the room, you can't stand anyone questioning you or having a different opinion or whatever." And she basically commands her to follow orders, and she's like, mm-hmm. And then she goes and does what she wants anyway, which is good because she finds sabotage, and they actually find a saboteur, and they find one of the crew members, Ramirez from the Farragut, is basically having the same hallucinations as Uhura, but he's much further along. They try to help him to take him to sickbay. He ends up attacking them, escaping. He attacks and kills someone in the hall. He does escape. He cuts off the lights and he escapes. And we have a scene where Kirk and Uhura are basically going through the corridor, and we have Pike and Lan, they're all sort of searching for this guy, and eventually Uhura finds him in the nacelle, and he's trying to sabotage it. She tries to stop him, and at the last minute, Kirk shows up, beams them out, and he blows up the nacelle room, the whatever room it was in the cell, and blows out the side of the ship. And it's a good sequence. It's kind of horrific. We see the guy burned with flames and then frozen in space. And eventually, Uhura works out what it is. She works out that this is a signal from an alien race who were trying to communicate with him first, but they burned out that part of his brain, because that's why he's having trouble communicating, because part of his brain that dealt with language and communication was burnt out. They obviously did a better job communicating with her, but she was having trouble interpreting it. Once she started to look at it as a message and what could it mean, she worked out that these aliens were trying to tell her that they were killing them. So what she worked out was something was living in the deuterium, and when they were basically taking it out of the nebula and refining it, they were basically torturing and killing these aliens. So she goes up to the bridge and she basically tells Pike this, and he believes her, and he follows her because he actually says, what do we do? She said, we have to destroy the station, because they had started the refinery and they couldn't switch it off. So he agreed, and she said fire, and he said, yeah, fire, and they blew it up. And then the hallucination of Hema that had been on the bridge as a zombie standing there went back to normal Hema, who looked like he did when he was alive. And that's how she knew that, and it was basically nodding to her and basically thanking her. And that was how she realised that they resolved the issue. So everything's sort of resolved at that point. Now, when Carol Kane and Una are coming back in the shuttle, they're talking, and it's like, yeah, no, this is not about me and the fact that I gave you a C when you were my student, or that I'm sloppy. This is because whenever you see me, you're reminded of Hema and that he's gone and you lost your friend. And as human as that is of her, I did sort of feel like this is not very evolved for a Starfleet officer and for someone in the 21st century. So I can kind of give it a pass, because maybe some people have failings in self-awareness. Maybe that's hers, but I just didn't feel like someone would have been as unaware of it and acted out on it as much as she did before she sort of had it pointed out to her. But they sort of resolved that issue. And eventually, we did have a scene earlier with Spock and Chapel talking about their relationship. Spock wanted to be open with it. She's sort of like, I think it's a bit too new to sort of test it with everyone else knowing about it and Starfleet knowing about it. They're playing chess. And then later, Kirk and Uhura are on the deck with the bar. They're talking that, and they're talking about Sam, because Sam comes up and apologises to him and says, I'm proud of you getting this advancement to lieutenant, and you're like the youngest first officer and everything, and blah blah blah. And he's waiting for an apology. He's like, for what? And he's like, ugh, so another blow up, and he walks off. And he basically says, fine, go be on that ship, I'll be on the flagship, which he's eventually going to end up, Kirk's eventually going to end up commanding it. I'm guessing that's why he left to go do research somewhere else. But yeah, they end up talking about Sam, and Spock, who is critical of some elements of Sam's personality, makes a comment, and then Uhura invites Spock, she introduces Kirk and Spock and invites him to sit with them, and they sit and talk. And then we have this pan out of the bar, and we just watch them talk, and this is a band playing, and it's just like, okay, so this is the first time they met and the first time they talked, so it's kind of okay. So overall, I liked the episode. I liked the horror elements. I liked the mystery. I liked some of the interpersonal, emotional stuff was a little bit too. I didn't feel like it was as. I feel like these people were as aware and as sophisticated as they should have been for people in those positions, and it just felt like a little bit of trying too hard to put drama in the episode when we had enough from the story and the mystery, the science fiction story and the mystery. We didn't really need the personal drama. But aside from that, it was good. I enjoyed it. The visuals were good. The deck inside, the room inside the nacelle looked great when it blew out. That looked great. The shots of the Enterprise looked good. The shots of this giant station looked great. We had some good shots of the Enterprise interacting with it and all that. When it blew up, it looked amazing. I really enjoyed some of the shots on the bridge. The lighting seemed a bit more balanced. We still have those big white strips of light which seem just too much and sort of blow out, and sort of I really think they should just put something over them so they're not as strong, maybe some little grill lines or something. But aside from that, it felt kind of like the bridge on Star Trek 6. I felt a bit more comfortable on the bridge with this episode, and I enjoyed it overall. Lan did pop up for a second and talk to Kirk for a minute, but I don't think she's going to try and explore anything with him, because how can she have a relationship with him without being honest about what motivated her and the experience that she had with him in the blah blah blah. Too complicated. So I don't think she's going to go there. But she did pop up for a minute. But that was it. So I'm going to go. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Maybe even ding the bell. You might even see one of my videos. But yeah, another good episode of Strange New Worlds.